Hi, everyone. Erica Terblanche is joining me today to talk about her book, Run for the Love of Life. Erica is an accomplished endurance runner and adventure racer and has won numerous iconic long distance races all over the world, including the grueling Racing the Planet 7-day Sahara Desert Ultra Marathon, among many others. Erica is a life coach and psychologist with a master's degree in positive psychology. She is also the founder of Teach a Girl to Fish, Thrive Guru, and Thrive Run Club. Her lifelong quest is to determine how we can, over time, shape and mold ourselves to become the best we can possibly be. Run for the Love of Life is her first book.
Got it. Exactly.
Hi, Erica. Thank you for joining me today to talk about your book, Run for the Love of Life.
Hello, Annie. What a privilege to be here with you.
Oh, I am so honored you are here today. This is so inspirational, motivational, and actually, I might even start up taking running after reading this. That's how great this is. So go ahead and tell me why you wrote this book.
Right. So, Annie, I've been running for, I didn't run when I was young. I lived on a farm. And in my adult life, when I started working, I realized that I needed something to de-stress, some way of, managing my life. And interestingly enough, I only started running when I was 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and I mean, before that, I was an extreme adventurer and I was always hiking and stuff like that. But when I started running, I realized that my life changing a lot, and for the better. I mean, my work performance improved, my relationships improved, my health obviously improved, both mental and physical.
Yeah.
And after 20 years of running, it fundamentally changed me for the better. And I wrote the book to share some of that with people, and with the great ideal to get people inspired to move. And running is not the only way of moving. So dancing, swimming, whatever it is. But it was an ode to moving. That's why I wrote it, and to inspire others.
Well, it is sure inspirational. And so it's not just running you're running outside, you're running in the desert. So talk about why you chose desert running and how it's different.
Right. So, okay. And again, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said outside.
Yeah.
And so my book is both, it's an ode to running and an inspiration or a story to get people running, but equally it is a call back to nature, because all of this running that I did for 20 years happened to be out in the wilderness. I did grow up on a farm, and I think I was always drawn to nature and always hiking and doing things like that. So when I started running, obviously I was drawn to run in the wilderness and outdoors mostly. And I mean, if you look at the science of it, the degree of restoration that you get when you exercise outside versus exercising indoors, it's chalk and cheese. Yeah. So I ran a lot in the wilderness, and I did a sport called adventure racing, which is all wilderness-based extreme sport where you're out there for 5 days and 5 nights. So it was only natural for me when I took to running to actually start trail running in the wilderness. And then, this is maybe a long answer, but I started desert running because I went through a very difficult patch in my life. I got divorced, and as a way of getting through the grief and the heartbreak of it, I decided to do what the pilgrims and the prophets, and, I fled for the Sahara, and I did a 7-day desert race, which was extraordinary. I mean, it was life-changing. And the degree to which that experience helped me to cope and get through the difficulty, I didn't think it was possible in 7 days, to go through that.
And not only do you run these races or run for therapeutic value, you are winning these races and you are quite humble, but you have won. You have come in first place so many times. And you started when you were 30. It's just amazing what you have been through. Can you talk? And there is one point in the book where you talked about not worrying about what anybody else was doing while you were running. You were focused on your own race. And do you think that that is one of the reasons why you've been so successful running?
So what a beautiful question and a lovely insight. And thank you for reading even in between the lines. And yeah, I absolutely deeply believe that is why I did well, because I think there were 3 things really. I came to the sport because I loved it. I loved the way that it made me feel, the places it took me, the personal growth it brought for me. So I loved it for its own sake. And then the second thing is I never felt any performance pressure because I really didn't care about the podium. It was about the experience and not the winning of it, which was a great gift because it meant that I could come to every race with a sense of curiosity, thinking, oh, this is really far. I wonder how I'll do. Not compared to the others, but how will I fare vis-a-vis myself? So I didn't have any competitive pressure. And I think all that energy one sometimes spends on the other people and what they are doing, I could use that energy absolutely just to propel my body and my heart and soul forward on the course. Yeah. So I think that was perhaps the second thing. And then I think the third thing is because I came so late to the sport, nobody expected me to win, and neither did I, So every time I did win, it was a sort of a cherry on the cake, and it was a surprise. And so there was also no outside pressure for me, and I think that's why I did well, and that's why now that I'm 50 years old now, I ran like that for 20 years, and yesterday I signed up for a 160-kilometer race in our big mountains, and so what is that in miles? 100 miles, 100-mile race.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, what is the longest race you have done? Is that the longest? No, you've done longer, right?
No, longer. Yes, so help me translate this into miles. 208 kilometers, what is that in miles? 160 miles, I think.
Gosh.
Yeah, so it was a 24-hour race, and again, I got to this place with a sense of curiosity, wondering, so I wonder how far I can run in 24 hours. And only one other person beat me, and it was the winning male. And he beat me by 1 lap because it was,
wow.
That was quite extraordinary to witness. And I think the other thing is when you run with curiosity, you're sometimes outside your body. You're not inside suffering. You're sort of watching. You're a witness to it. So it was very interesting on this 208-kilometer race to watch and see myself go through the process, it was very interesting.
It almost seems like you have to be outside of your body to do something like this, because if you are feeling every little thing that you're experiencing, when I run, I'm like, my back hurts, my leg hurts, and so, but you seem to be able to get to, I guess it's the runner's high, like where you're just in this euphoric state, which I've never been, so I don't know, but if you could talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, wait. So I have to bust the myth. I think running long distance is a bit like a good marriage. You have highs and you have lows, and there's ups and there's downs. You just never get to the place where it is just euphoria and no pain.
Okay.
So there's definitely something about getting to that place where you're in absolute flow. Everything is going smoothly. You're in your body. And it's just an extraordinary feeling of presence, you know, being, and it's all working and it's great. But a very large portion of endurance running is actually learning to be with pain, and being with body aches, and being with mental challenges and worries and concerns. So I think the biggest muscle that I've developed over the years in endurance running is something around acceptance. You know, so when you're running and your back feels like it's actually been kicked by a mule, there's actually a technique, it's called the emotional freedom technique, that I use sometimes, where you witness the pain, you see it, you accept it, you acknowledge it, you call it by its name and say, okay, my left hip is really sore. You say out loud, I accept you for what you are. And you go through a sequence of meridian tapping that actually helps you to short circuit your mind, to not obsess about it. So, and it's a bit like how you deal with negative emotion in life as well. You know, the more you try and suppress it, and you know it, the harder it gets and the worse it gets, and the more it sort of erupts in other ways in your life. So it's the same with difficulty in endurance running. The sooner you witness it, call it by its name, accept it, and then almost, I'm not going to say welcome it, that's a strong sense, but use it as information even sometimes. So maybe your back is sore because your posture is not right and your head is not exactly on top of your spine. So you witness it, and then if you can change something, you do. But it is about being with pain in a way that helps you to be equipped for life, I think. You know?
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that, because not being a runner and not running long distances, I know you talked a little bit about that in your book, but having you explain it is like an aha. And I hope that helps people who are listening, that they can overcome things too by using this, like meridian tapping you had talked about, and just accepting where it is, and then trying to let it go and not obsessing over it. Yeah.
Completely. And I think the trick, and it's so beautifully that you describe it like that, not obsessing over it, but the first step is to ask it, what is it? I mean, there's even a practice that I use emotionally. So if I'm really anxious about something, or anxious about the run, and not just running, but in life, I would say, okay, this emotion that I'm feeling is X, and maybe I'm feeling a little bit anxious about something, and I'll say, what is it that you want me to do for you to go away?
Okay.
What is it? Yeah, you ask it, and then it will say, well, you better write that presentation and practice it, because if you do it, you'll feel less anxious, and then you can actually do something, and then the emotion goes away.
I think that's good advice. Yes, in life in general. I like that. Notice what's ailing you, notice where this is coming from, and what can you do about it. It's
Exactly.
a self-awareness.
Yeah.
And okay, so you talked a little bit about how you focused on your own race, but I also got a sense of this belonging in a group. So when you're running these races, even though you're competing against each other, you mentioned this sense of belonging and how that's a need for humans. Can you talk more about this sense of belonging as you are running?
Right. So, I mean, when you are on a 7-day race, I don't know if our listeners know this, but you carry your backpack with all your food for 7 days. Yeah. You also carry all your clothing and your sleeping bag and your toiletries, which means you basically run in the same set of clothing for 7 days. Perhaps you've got a clean crop top for the evenings, perhaps. And your toiletries are at a bare minimum. In fact, we cut off the ends of our toothbrushes, so we just carry the bristle. It's like extra bit of weight. And the point being that you're running for 7 days in these majestic landscapes, and you are sweating together, you are suffering together, you are bonded by the extremely awe-inspiring experience and the difficulty of it. And, you know, Annie, in these races, it doesn't matter whether you sweep the floors or whether you're the CEO. There is no sense of status or hierarchy. And what is so beautiful about it is that we are humans together in this place. And on these 7-day races, the only thing we get is water and a canvas tent, and not even with sides, just sort of a awning to sit under in the 50-degree Celsius sun. And you sit under that canvas once you finish the day's running, that could be anything from 6 to 12 hours long, and you talk, or you just sit together in silence. And the veneer wash, you still there? Hi.
Sorry, you cut out for like a few seconds.
Right, sorry about that.
Okay.
But so the veneer washes away in these places, and the true person comes to the surface. And, you know, and it's not as if though there's any, it's hard to explain, but the judgment goes away, and you really experience a great degree of compassion and what it is to be human. And from that place, it is so great, because even on the first day of the race or the second day of the race, you have the deepest conversations that would take you with strangers. And it would take you 3-4 years, I think, of friendship before you broach the subjects that easily get slung around under the canvas tent, you know, among 30 or 40 or 50 strangers. It's quite remarkable. So there's a great sense of camaraderie and belonging. And maybe I can add something interesting, is that a lot of older people, you would be so fascinated to see that there are sometimes 60, 65, 70-year-old people signing up for these 7-day races, and they actually come and walk it. But very often, because the trail running community in these 7-day racing community is quite small, they come to feel part of a family, you know, and to still feel a sense of belonging. Many people are widowed or, you know, and then they come on these races, and it's just so wonderful to feel how we hold each other in the fold. But we also compete with each other, you know, so it's not all...
You get a little bit of both, you know, you get the sense of belonging, the opening up, the bonding, and then you have a good old competition.
Yeah, it's a race after all, you know, otherwise we'd call it a pilgrimage. It's not, it's a race.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I love that. So if you had to talk about one major lesson you've learned from your experiences running, what would you say that is?
Sure, just one.
I know, it's so hard, right?
It is hard, because it truly rewired me. I mean, it changed who I am as a person. Somebody sent me a photograph of myself 25 years ago, last week, and I actually didn't recognize the person. I just didn't. Sure, Annie, there are so many lessons, but I think the lesson is really to apply yourself, you know, to just show up. It doesn't matter if it's 3 kilometers or 20 kilometers or 100 kilometers. It's to just show up in your life, and to take the first step, especially when you're starting something new, not to wait until you feel like it, but just to show up. Take the first step, take the pressure off yourself, take it with curiosity, and kind of the next step begins to look after itself, especially if you're in a community. So I think for me, that's the biggest one. Just show up, you know.
That's great.
Don't
great advice.
And I just want to say, with the showing up, don't wait until you're sure. Don't wait until you're certain, because you'll only know once you try. And if you try with curiosity and not with any kind of presupposed performance pressure, it's okay, no matter what happens. But just show up. Don't wait until you're sure you're going to do it.
Yeah. I
Go,
like that.
just begin. Yeah.
Yeah. There are many times I dread, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this, but when I do show up, I think, why did I question this? And
Yeah.
it can be life-changing when you do show up. Yeah.
Completely. And when you show up, you think, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this 10 years
Yeah.
ago? Why did I wait? Because there's something else about when you show up. It's that beautiful quote, and it's not by Goethe. Everybody says it's by Goethe, but it's actually not by Goethe. It's somebody who quoted Goethe, where it's a quote that says, "When you just begin, boldness, beginnings have magic and boldness in it. Just begin, because when you do, all manner of men and women in the universe and energies conspire to support you in what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But thinking about doing something, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I know. You got to get out there.
Get
So,
out there.
so I want to show your book one more time. Now, I think I know where this is, but tell me where that is.
Right. It's in my favorite place in the world. It's in the Sahara Desert.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is a truly. Have you been? Have you been to the Sahara?
I have not. I have not.
It's very. It is probably the most magic, and I've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
It's the most magical place I've ever been in the world. There's something in the Sahara that you can't. There's a book called The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry,
Yeah.
and I understand why a book like that was inspired in the Sahara, because the dunes, Annie, are soft, and they have these perfect swish shapes,
Yeah.
and then the wind blows over them and just gently sifts these streaks of sand off it.
Yeah.
There's this immense, so the dunes look like silk, and there's this immense, vast, spacious presence in the Sahara. And I've been in many deserts. It's just a really magical place, and the Bedouins that often support the races have a very spiritual relationship with the desert. And in one of my races, I had the privilege of beginning to understand and see the desert through the eyes of two Bedouin brothers and their love affair with this sandy expanse, and how they go back as often as they can every summer, winter holiday. You know, they find a way to do some work for races or safari companies or whatever. I think the one was a chartered accountant, but they find a way to come back into the desert because the love of it is so great. And I mean, then you talk about the Sufi poets like Rumi and Hafiz, and you know, honestly, the stars dripped on their tongues. That's why they wrote the way they did. Yeah.
It's beautiful writing. Yes. Well, great. So tell us where people can find your book.
Right. So Run for the Love of Life is available on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon.com. And it's in Kindle and it's in paperback, whichever way you wish it. So.
Oh, wonderful.
And the next book was literally born this past weekend. So I've just started the next one. And it's the first time I've said that publicly. So you're the first to know.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's so amazing. We can't wait for it.
Annie, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that people will pick up your book because it is so inspiring. It's motivational, and I just loved every word of it.
That's wonderful. And thank you for being so generous and with this podcast that you do and bringing good books to people. It's such a valuable thing, you know.
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.